Hello, and welcome to It's Gonna Be May All the Day Long Artist Interview Series. For episode 10, we have Nathan Prisk. Nathan Prisk grew up in Oak Harbor, Washington, where he began studying piano at the age of 7. He continued his studies through college, where he received the Spivey Foundation Music Scholarship at Clayton State University in Morrow, Georgia. While at Clayton State, Nathan completed his Bachelor of Arts degree in music with a vocal proficiency and earned his Master's in Educational Leadership from Bob Jones University. Since then, he has performed with the Daybreak Quartet, the Capital City Opera Company, Opera South, and is currently a soloist and choral clinician. Nathan is a private piano and voice teacher and has been the Fine Arts Director at Creekside Christian Academy in McDonough and Hampton, Georgia for 10 years. He directs the 6th grade, middle school, and high school choirs, as well as an auditioned group, Voices of CCA. Nathan was saved at the age of 5, and his desire has been to grow in his relationship with Jesus Christ, to share the gospel through the use of talents God has given to him, and to set an example for those God has allowed him to influence. Nathan lives in McDonough, Georgia, with his wife Sarah and 2 sons, Judah and Gideon. And without further ado, here's the interview with Nathan Prisk.
We have incorporated, I find with my students at Creekside, I have a new group every year. I don't get a beginner in 9th grade and then an intermediate and then an advanced and then a mastery like you would in public school if you go through those 4 different levels of teaching. And so I am basically getting a new group every year. And I have 2 or 3 students. Next year I'll have 4 or 5 that stick with me, and I don't have big groups anyways. But the time that I have to take with the students, I feel like I have to spend all that time teaching them how to sing. I have to focus on that side of it, and I need to be focusing more on the theory side. So with this break in singing, for my students, I've been able to use like Breezing Through Theory is the website that has it's almost on an elementary level, but it's built for up through high school. The concepts, there's 24 different units that you can take them through. So I started using that for my students, and I didn't assign it to them. I gave it to them with incentives for gift cards, and at the end of next week, we'll have finished 4 weeks with it, and the one who does the most drills completed online will get a $50 Amazon gift card. So I think I have more students doing it because of that than if I had assigned it, because online, I'm not seeing a lot of students complete things on time. Some students have not completed anything, and I think everybody is seeing that. And then I have the students who nothing affects them. They've completed it on time. They always did in class. So using the online elements, Sight Reading Factory, I don't know if you use that for your students, but that's a great resource as well.
I have
for
not used
sight
that,
reading.
but we've used Breezing Through Theory, so I'm very familiar with that. And
yeah, and I've enjoyed it.
It's really good. It teaches them just the basic elements of music so that when they see music in sheet music, they at least it's not foreign. It's not like another language to them. So
Right. Yeah.
good.
So I've enjoyed that, and I'm going to incorporate that next year. I think it's like $3 for the year for a student. So it's not bad. And then Sight Reading Factory is around $5 or $6 per student. So I would recommend checking that one out, especially because you can easily assign tasks to be done. And then when they turn them in, it's easy to grade them, easy to check them out, unless you have students who are really struggling with it.
Figure out the whole sight reading thing? Do they like turn in a video for you?
No, so it just records the audio. So in the software, which they can use on their phone or on their iPad or any browser, or they can use the apps for iOS. Then they get the assignment. They can practice as much as they want, but they get the assignment. They can try and complete it as many times as they want. Once they're happy with it, they can submit it. The great thing about it is if they're not happy with it and they want to do it again, it gives a completely new example. So it's always sight reading. It's not practice, this one example. It's building and always sight reading
Right.
with that concept. So I know a lot of colleges and definitely high schools middle schools that are using it. So
Oh,
I'm going to be using
nice.
those. I'm definitely going to be using those more next year. I had gotten away from it this year until March. So once March hit, then got back into everything that was available online. So maybe they're offering it for free.
Oh, are they?
So they are. So Sight Reading Factory offered it for free. Reason Through offered it for free. Did I just say they offered it for free? Sorry, offered it
For
for
3.
free for 3, yeah, for 3 months. So what they're doing is they're trying to build up the awareness for their brand and obviously bring in more customers for next year. And not knowing where we're going to end up next year, it's really some affordable resources that can be used in the time that we're waiting to get back in the classroom. A lot has definitely changed. Obviously, going from an in-class environment where I was able to teach, I teach sixth grade chorus, I teach middle school and high school chorus. And so going from being able to see my kids every day to maybe once a week we connect online now because they're connecting with their academics and other things. So that's a huge shift. So that's been the biggest change, has been not being in the classroom physically in front of the students, being able to work with them, being able to hear them sing. And so taking this time away has actually allowed me to focus now on the language of music, if you will. I talk to my students about music is exactly like a language. You have to learn how to read it. You have to learn what it means when you hear it. You have to learn how to speak it, sing it. You have to learn how to write it. And so it's not an easy thing to do. It is something that requires practice. It requires immersion. It requires being involved with it enough to the point that it's a part of you.
Mhm.
And so unfortunately, in my classroom, I feel like I don't have enough time to get into theory. I don't have enough time to get into how music is built and the building blocks. And so during this time, we've been able to, with online programs like Reason Through Theory, with Sight Reading Factory, been able to give some of those building blocks to my students, and some of them have taken it and run with it. Others have not even created their login yet, but they have the opportunity now to understand the other side of music. And so I'm very interested to see how, if we come back in the fall, or August is when we start, the first week of August in Georgia. If we come back in August and we're not able to meet together, or it's a random here and there as far as where we're meeting, then putting elements of that in place at the very beginning of the year, I think is going to be more helpful for my students, and will probably help me to be a better teacher in the future, of incorporating them and not feeling like I have to just be singing the whole time in the classroom. So I
Right.
think that's a big change that has happened for me, but for the positive. Sure. So I have 2 boys. I'm married. My wife Sarah, been married for 18 years this year. Um,
Wow.
I'm getting I'm getting old, getting very old. So we have 2 boys. They are 15 and 13, and so they go to the school where I teach. I teach at Creekside Christian Academy in McDonough, Georgia. And for them, they've pretty much just gone straight along. They are they're top of their class students. They are uh, all the when I went to school, the top grade you could get was a 100. And I went to a small private school, but the top grade, my boys come home, they're like, I got 115 on my final. I'm like, how did you get that? Well, I put bonus points with it. I answered a bonus question. So they're not competing for the top grade of 100. They're competing for like 106, 107 with all these bonuses. So I don't know how I feel about bonus points. Um, when I've had some teachers, they're like, if you come back in my room, I'll give you bonus points. That's not it. That's not education.
Mm.
But um, they've adapted well to it. They are already tech savvy. My youngest son is really into coding, and so he'll sit down at the dinner table and he'll say, "Hey, we were on a video call today, so I looked at the HTML code and it was really cool because it kept changing all this stuff." I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about. I've heard of HTML, but so he's really into it. My oldest son is just able to get the work done and move forward. Getting that time with family, being able to be at the dinner table every single night. Until this happened, we were in the fall cross country, so my boys would be running after school. We'd get home late. Every Saturday was a cross country meet. Every Sunday is church. We're very heavily involved in our church, and so it was just always going. There was hardly ever a time my wife and I will look at each other and think like, well, we we look forward to like 2 or 3 weeks later when the next time is we can actually sleep in. It's just,
I
it's almost
know.
depressing sometimes because I mean, the boys will sleep till noon, but then we've got to be doing whatever it is. So having the time to slow down, we still haven't slept in much, but having that time to slow down and be a family each night and be able to not be at baseball games, baseball was kicking off and the boys were going to be games all the time. And so it's been very, very refreshing and relaxing. And I think it's going to take a little while to get back to that hectic pace of life for a lot of
Yeah.
different reasons.
Mhm.
And I don't think that will be a bad thing. And I hope we are all appreciating more and more the time that we have together and not getting frustrated with the fact that we're together so much. Especially for me with my boys, they're going to be gone soon to college and those things. So really appreciating the time. We actually had never gone camping, so I borrowed a tent and we slept in a tent in our backyard last weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
didn't realize the condensation was going to drip on us at 2 in the morning, but we survived. um, Yeah, somewhat. We have a schedule for school. And so as teachers, we have basically from 8 till noon, and then from 1 to 3, we're available for our students Monday through Friday. We have specific times during the week that we set up live connections, and so that the students are able to be on all of those connections for their classes. So the school set up a schedule. You have a specific time each week. Some teachers are able to do it every day and just say, hey, if you can meet with us, like my middle school math teacher for Gideon, he's on every day for a half an hour, just going through concepts, working through problems on the board for them. So that's helpful. So for me, that's a schedule that's kind of been put in place for me. That's good to follow. Um, Other than that, not really. I still stay up way too late. I read, and so I'll stay up until I can't read anymore, until my eyes are falling closed, falling asleep, and so then the alarm will always come in too early in the morning. But that is during the day. We definitely have that schedule set up. But as soon as 3 o'clock hits, could be my boys still take private lessons for oboe and horn, so we're going to that on Mondays. We are some other days we're trying to make sure that we're getting out and about. We had trouble finding a bicycle for Gideon. We were trying to buy one. We went to Academy Sports. There was only one on the rack. It wasn't the right size. We went to Target. There was nothing there. So we finally ordered one, and it took a week and a half to come in. But then we went to a park nearby, went and rode trails about 9 miles, which going from 0 to 9 miles was fun. I did a little bit of walking,
Yeah.
but just being able to get out and do more. The weather's getting nicer, and so that's been something that having the flexibility to just kind of like, hey, what do you guys want to do right now? Hey, what we have time. We don't have a specific place we have to be. So that's been enjoyable.
Wow. Well, that's good. Just keeping good physical activity going around.
Yes.
So the
Yeah.
parks there are open, I'm
Some
assuming.
of them are. So I'm in Georgia. The governor required that the state parks be left open, and so for a time they were open, but there was you couldn't. None of the facilities were open, but you could go use the trails. You could go. There were no park rangers there, but they were available to use. They did just finally this last weekend start manning the parks again, and so
Hmm.
there's staff there. But our county, there's a park just 2 miles from us, and they've kept that closed. It's still not open. So it's a brand new park. It's really nice to run and to ride there. but we can't get into it yet.
So
A
do you
little
have
bit
to go
frustrating.
far to get to a park? You have to travel.
Thankfully, we just have to go about 10 miles. And so that's not bad for
Okay.
us. We,
Mm-hmm.
where we moved to a few years ago, is up, it's called Panola Mountain. It's not really a mountain. I'm from Washington State. So, in Georgia, they think they have mountains,
They
but
have just hills.
they do. Well, and it's like Stone Mountain in Georgia is it's technically a mountain, but, no, it's nice to have those areas close by. And I think as we're continuing through this and just not knowing what the future is, if they're going to open things up more or not, but knowing that we have more time, that we're at home, or we can plan to not be busy with everything else and socially, then we can make more plans to do things as a family like that and get out to other parks that we've wanted to go to. We did have one parent from our school who was hospitalized and put on a ventilator and did recover. He was in the Army Reserves, and he believes he picked it up at a training function that they had over a weekend. And so that's probably the person closest to me that I know of that has it. But nobody in my family has been affected. Um, Nobody that is any closer than that. And he's a good friend. Helped one of the coaches for my boys on their cross country team helps out with that. So somebody pretty close. But yeah, he came through it and just still slowly recovering. It's pretty weak coming off of the ventilator and how everything attacked his system. So still praying for him, and he's keeping his distance from folks too still. So as he recovers, just in thinking through um, how 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 widespread is this? I have friends in Sweden. I got to go to Scotland with the Daybreak Quartet in 2007 and 2009, and met a group from Sweden, live in Stockholm. And Stockholm is one of the countries that they did not do any shelter in place. They just kind of went about their daily business. They did have their older generations um, shelter in place and take care of them, but kids still going to school, and business still going on. And so depending on who you listen to, they're doing great, or that was the dumbest idea ever. And it's interesting. You'll look at the numbers they're giving, and everybody likes to skew them for their argument. But I contacted them a couple weeks ago and said, "Hey, how are you guys doing?" And they said, "Just going on with life." They said it's not been something that they have um, been told to be afraid of. Here's some guidelines to follow, but it's not something that has shut down their education, shut down their business and everything like that. So um, I don't know. It'll be a while before we kind of have some comprehensive analysis and understanding of how widespread this actually was, and how debilitating, I guess.
Hmm.
So I don't
Interesting.
know.
Part of me thinks that, your exposure to like the viruses and bacteria out there actually strengthen your immune system. So I feel like now that we're all shelter in place, staying at home and not being exposed to those things anymore is actually making our immune system weaker.
I completely agree with that. Absolutely.
So it's
And
just
and so
interesting.
yeah. So once we get back to life, it won't just be COVID-19. It'll be just colds. I think everybody's it's gonna get the common cold so easily. You're gonna pass the flu so easily because everything is just kind of lowered as far as our immune system. So we're still taking our daily vitamins and supplements, making sure that we're trying to stay as healthy as we can. I probably would have prepared my students more
Hmm.
uh, for the change to online. just because when we made the change, I had to make a lot of videos. I wasn't able to get direct feedback and make sure that the students understood what we were doing online because it was different from the classroom. So one thing I will change as we go into the next fall and getting back into the classroom is making sure that I incorporate some of these elements. And I think every teacher should be doing this, and probably will be doing this, is just putting that plan in place and letting the students know, if something like this happens, this is how our class will function. So they'll know what to expect. They'll understand how to use the technology and what's expected of them. Um, and you can even find out too, like, okay, the student has a deficiency in their ability to access technology, right? We have one family in our church and in our school that has 10 kids, and 7 of them are in school right now.
Mm.
So they don't have 7 computers, but they have 7 students who are needing to complete a day of school every day. So understanding from that perspective, and just having grace and
Right.
understanding when it comes to accepting their projects and when they get them in. Another thing that I have done since this happened, and I wouldn't change it because when we're in the classroom environment, it wouldn't change. But just understanding the elective classes they're important to the students who are in them. Um, as far as the future, like down the road, your involvement in weight training, or your involvement in computer programming, your involvement in chorus is not going to be something that weighs as heavily like going into college. Going into college, your grades and everything are weighed, obviously. What kind of student were you? What kind of activities were you involved in? Even here in the state of Georgia, the electives don't factor into some major state scholarships that our students get.
Mm.
So they take all the grades of the academics. So coming into this online environment, because I'm a performing art, because band is a performing art, um, even visual arts, our teachers have been doing a great job. But there's just something about being there, hands-on with those things. I've tried to get my students to focus on the academics and say, keep this strong, keep this going, because music is a part of their life already. They're listening to music all day while they're doing their schoolwork. They're singing along, they're making their videos and whatever it is. But trying to get them to make sure that they're focusing on the academic, because it'd be really easy for them to blame, well, I was trying to do this project for chorus, and so I didn't get my other work done. So I've made it very, really almost too simple for them. It's like we started out and it was one assignment a week. It would take them about 5 minutes. And if you just did the assignment, I would give you a 100 on it. I still have students who haven't turned those in. But I tried to make it as easy as I could for them because I didn't want them stressed out about it. I wanted
Right.
them to make sure they had time to do those other things. So when we get back to that regular environment, I will probably um, I may push a little bit more because we do have the dedicated time for it.
Right.
Online, backed off. But once we get back to the classroom, and whether we're allowed to be singing or not, who knows what the guidelines and regulations will be for schools. But just to make sure that hey, here's a more well-rounded. I focused on singing so much, but here's that language of music we talked about earlier. Here's how to understand it and to know more about music, because now you can take this and you can go play on the keyboard at home. Now you can understand what is happening when you're listening to music, why all the music sounds somewhat similar in in the genre that you like to listen to. Here's
Mm.
why. Here's how it's built. So some of those things that I would change. I've been keeping my voice in shape. That's one thing that I want to do. That's one thing. That's my goal. Is that coming out of this, um, teaching 3 classes, 2 of them 5 days a week, one other one 3 days a week, constantly singing, constantly keeping my voice in shape. And I noticed over the summer that my voice, you get to church on Sunday and it's not as easy to sing because you haven't sung the whole week. So I'm trying to be more active with that, even though there's not as many occasions. We do still, our church does an online service. So we have the praise team, and I sing about every 2 weeks on that. Um, I'm singing this Sunday, so I need to again make sure my voice is in shape. But trying to do that. I am the type of person that I think you said when we were first talking, you kind of everything you approach it in a positive way. I approach everything in a positive way, and also from the standpoint that God is going to work things out. My dad was a pastor. I grew up in my home understanding that God was going to take care of everything, and it was proven over and over from God providing finances for us, from God providing for the church, and just seeing those examples over and over. And so I built a a, a trust and an understanding that God will take care of us. But now, one of the things that I do, and it hasn't affected anything now, is that I do choir clinics for churches. And so in traveling with the quartet, I sang with the Daybreak Quartet for about 13 years, traveled all across the country, and got to travel to Australia, Japan, Europe, um, and forming relationships with churches, and seeing a lot of these medium-sized churches don't have a choir director or a music leader who has a degree in that. It's somebody who's a volunteer, and they do a good job with it, but they don't have the knowledge. And so I've been able to work with several churches, come in for a Friday night or a Saturday workshop, where we just sit down with the choir and say, how does your voice work? What can you do to improve your voice on your own? And then how does that bring this whole choir? If 10% of the singers in that choir, it clicks for them and they improve, or if everybody just kind of picks up something and there's a small improvement, building that choir and allowing them to have that understanding, which for some people that's great, that they really latch onto it. Other people are like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I stay away from technical terms. I try to give visual examples. And so in doing that, and kind of singing some solo things, having a very limited solo career with that, I do want to build that in the years to come, and to be able to help, to be able to come alongside churches and say, hey, this ministry is important. Now, again, I don't know if states are going to try and mandate and say, and I've heard people say this: churches, when you come back together, your congregations can't sing. You can't tell us that we can't sing. You can recommend that we probably shouldn't because of the research that's been done, but you can't come in and tell us that we can't sing. So that's probably going to be on hold for a little while, as
Mm.
far as scheduling more work with churches and things like that. But that would be one of my goals in moving forward, is just to be able to build my effectiveness in doing that, and in singing for churches that way. So I get chances every now and then to do some different things. I got to sing with Phil Cross and Poet Voices last year. I
Mm.
traveled with them for a couple months, just filling in, and it was one of the coolest things for me, because thinking back, and if you're a fan of Southern gospel, you know a lot of songs he's written. If you don't like Southern gospel, if you've never heard of it, then it's you have no clue, and that's fine. One of the first songs I ever heard was Champion of Love, and it's a song he wrote back in the 80s, and pretty much every group out there has recorded it. And so I got to sing with them. He's written for 40 years, and the first 2 weekends I sang with them, we didn't sing the song. I'm like, it's my favorite song. I really want to sing this. And finally, when we got to sing it, we were in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the American Music Theater, and we start singing it, and I couldn't even make it through the chorus. It was just like emotion that hit me for it, because this is the music, or the song that introduced me to this genre, introduced me to what I spent 13 years of my life doing on a full-time basis. And so that was a really cool moment for me that I got to experience. I would tell them what I tell all of my voice students. I would tell them, learn to be comfortable with your voice. Learn to be comfortable with who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. For me, it happened in my senior year of college. Um, I had I had I didn't understand my voice, and when I finally kind of unlocked it, a friend of mine came in, and I was getting ready for my senior recital, a month before my senior recital. So I've learned the rep, and I was doing Ray Vaughan Williams' Songs of Travel, doing the whole cycle. So he comes in, he's a baritone and sings with the Atlanta Opera, and he sings the songs, and it just clicked. It clicked like
Mm.
that's what, not that I'm supposed to sound like him, but I'm supposed to just have that freedom in my voice. And I've been trying to make it sound a certain way
Mhm.
for so long. And so once I understood what my voice was and I was comfortable with that, I was able to build as an artist. I was able to excel as an artist. I liken it to that foundation. You've got, when you build a house, you could have a strong foundation. That's our vocal technique. That's our breathing, everything that comes into how we produce that sound. And then you've got to build the framework, and that's got to be right too. That's got to be solid. That's your technique. That's your range. That's all these other things. But once you get the foundation and the frame, you can decorate that house however you want to. You can put brick on it. You can put siding on it. You can put cedar plank. You can put, you know, I walked past a house the other day in our neighborhood. They put these bright blue shutters on a brick house. Like, I would not do that.
Yeah.
But some
Well,
people want to do that. So your voice, when you are comfortable with your voice, you're going to be able to do so much more with it. So that would be my advice. Find your voice, and once you're comfortable with that, build on that as an artist. And that doesn't, obviously, for different genres and different sounds, you've got to go in a direction to create that sound. For Southern gospel, I've got to pronounce things a little bit in a drawl sometimes.
right.
It's not how I would speak. It's not how I would normally sing. But it's for that genre. It's appropriate and it's correct. I don't sing. I traveled with an opera company for a year, and so I had to sing in that genre. I had to sing that way, and I enjoyed it because it's just like pure singing. It's one of the ones you can just kind of, you don't hold anything back, and you can have
Mhm.
so much fun. Um, but when I sing in church, or like this Sunday I'm singing I Can Only Imagine, we're doing a series on heaven. And I'm not going to sing it like I would if I was on the stage singing uh, uh, Così fan tutti by Mozart. That's not the same style. That's not what they want to
I
hear.
can
Uh,
only.
yeah.
That would be funny.
Well, maybe I should do that. They might. It is recorded live. Otherwise, they'd cut it and they'd say, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Um, so I'll try to do better with it. But so that would be my advice for anybody who is considering it, or anybody even in the middle of it. I mean, so many times when we just wonder, are we doing the right thing? Is this the right career? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And a lot of time it's frustration with how we're progressing. You know, I have a friend who's my voice coach. I haven't seen him for a couple of years because he's working with top artists out there. Travels with Dave Matthews Band. He went to school with me at Clayton State University. Really nice guy, very talented, very expensive. But I go to him every now and then because I need to make sure that I am not getting complacent.
Mm.
Make sure that I am not getting to a point where I'm comfortable. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that I need to learn. There's so much more to
But
learn.
there's so much all the time, just continuously
Absolutely.
wanting to learn. I feel like I'm a forever student. I know I haven't
Hmm.
hit my stride. I'm always learning something new, just
Yes.
wanting to get better every time. And every time I feel like I start to get comfortable with something, then I hear
Hmm.
like a new artist pop out of nowhere and they do things that I'm like, how, how's that even possible? Or,
Yeah.
wow, I haven't attempted to try that before, you know.
And sometimes for good reason, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So true.
Um, yeah. So here's my motivation for music, and as a Christian, the parable of the talents is huge. It has really been a motivator for me, because in that parable you have this guy, he's going on a journey. He's got 3 servants, and he gives to them, one he gives 5 talents, one he gives 2 talents, one he gives 1 talent. And I know it's different words or different things in different versions. In the King James it says talent. And so I think that's appropriate for the fact of we have talents in our life, and it's not just thinking from the perspective of the money. But he leaves and he says he expects them to do to take care of that for him, and to do business, and to get better, to do more with what they have. When he comes back, the one who had 5 has 10, the one who had 2 or 3 has 5, and the one who had 1 comes back and says, look, I buried it, but I didn't lose it. And the owner says, you're a wicked and lazy servant. I feel like one day I'm going to stand before God and I'm going to present to him what he gave to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to stand there and say, look, you gave me this talent and I got it to this point and then I buried it and I didn't work on it anymore. I want to be able to stand before him and say, I did my best to improve on what you gave me as much as was possible. I studied. I got instruction from other people. I took what I learned and I shared it with others. And I want to be able to say that rather than, yeah, I know you gave me a gift, but I didn't want to use it. I know you gave this to me, but it was a lot of work. And so that's a big motivation for me. And I try to instill that in my students as well, is what are you going to say at the end of your life? What are you going to say you did with that talent? Whatever it was, whatever that you're good at, whatever God has given you to do. And I think we all deep down inside know that God has given us something to do. And even if that's just being an encouragement to other people, I say that it's not just being an encouragement. That's huge. Somebody who's able to be an encouragement, and you can do that in so many ways. Just keep working on what you we're working on, right? You have more time now to focus on these things, and take it as a positive rather than the negative of I can't be out here doing this. Well, maybe as a songwriter, that's your opportunity to really dive deeper. Songwriting, some of the greatest songs come out of the worst times. Some of the greatest songwriters were they had horrible circumstances. Their lives were not perfect. I think that's why I appreciate so many songs, older songs. As an artist, find that way to get to the next level. I've been teaching lessons online for students from school. I have 2 students that a high school teacher in the county had me work with them for their college auditions. Have students that I work with around the country, and you can find people to work with. Maybe this is your opportunity to work with that person that you really admire. Like you were saying, you've been able to reach out to people that you probably never would have been in contact with, and maybe that person's willing to say, "Hey, I'll work with you. I'll be glad to work with you. Let's connect next week." So one of my favorite artists is Wintley Phipps. Amazing baritone. I wish I sounded like him, but he recorded a song called "No Need to Fear." I think I bought every single one of his soundtracks because I have that range. I just don't have the tone. And so I've sung that in church a couple times, and it's straight out of Psalms, and it talks about when oppression comes to your when oppression is beating at your door, when all these things are going wrong, there's no need to fear, because God will be there. God is there. God will be there in the morning when all of these things at nighttime we're so afraid of this and the worries and everything that come through, but there's going to be a morning, and you're going to have that peace, especially as Christians, that comes from knowing that God is with you. God is in control. He knows what you're going through. If we will follow his plan for our life, if we will follow what we know to do, then he has the best in mind for us. I'm grateful that we have a God who cares about us. I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to live for him. even when the circumstances aren't great. And sometimes when the circumstances are great, we forget, and it's not as easy to stay focused on him. So hopefully we are all growing closer to him during this time, as Christians, as followers of Christ. That would be something that we hopefully are not missing out on during this time.